Good morning. Welcome to 101.7 KDNO, and it's time for WYO Today Sports Live, your every Friday morning look at Fremont County sports here on WYO Today. I'm Kevin Shields. I'm joined, as always, by Cody Beers and Baylor on the phone. Baylor's up in DuBois. Guys, how's it going?
Going well. Yeah, it's
going
a
well.
great day for football.
So, yes, it is. We'll dive right into it because we got some results from the past couple days since we were last on the air. And, of course, a big weekend for all of our coverage as far as our bigger schools go, as far as football goes last week. Riverton just dominating Green River, kind of expected. Evanston being dominated by Lander Valley. And, of course, one of the kind of surprises, just because so many guys knew, running back returning after a year off and a brand-new quarterback, Thermopolis sitting at 3-0 with a home game tonight. But we had some other sports action, too, in Fremont County this past week. In volleyball, it was DuBois defeating St. Stephen's in 3 straight, 3-0. Riverton, getting back on track, they defeated Jackson 3-1. Lyman defeated Lander Valley, and Lander Valley just trying to find a way to get right. Came into the season ranked and has just struggled all year. Lyman defeats Lander Valley 3-0, and Shoshone last night went up to the Thermopolis and won 3-0. In swimming, it was a Lander at Green River. We didn't have any team scores reported, but just kind of looking at how it went, Cody and Baylor, as far as the individuals, it does look like Lander Valley, when the team scores do get reported, they will win. They had several individual winners. 1 meter diving, Brooklyn White. 100-yard butterfly was Katie Anderson. 100-yard freestyle, Sarah Kearns. 500-yard freestyle, Dagan Reinhardt. 200-yard freestyle relay, Veda Havens, Dagan Reinhardt, Chase Denton, and Emily Plasted. 200-yard freestyle, Iris Woltman. 200-yard individual medley, Veda Havens again. 100-yard backstroke, Chase Denton again, and backstroke, and on the 100-yard breaststroke, Veda Havens. So while the boys at Lander Valley are really well known for how many state titles they got now, 28 in a row or something like that.
Yes, and the girls are right there with them. I mean,
the girls looking really good this
year. Dominant Lander teams.
Dominant Lander teams. Of course, we did have our game of the week in football last night, and it's one of those, it was a get-right game potentially for both. Both teams come in, the Wind River Cougars and Wyoming Indian Chiefs, with an 0-3 record. The unfortunate matter with a get-right game like that with two 0-3 teams is one team's going to be 0-4. And Wind River dominated in the fashion when Wind River wins big, you expect them to do. 350 yards plus on the ground. 2 rushers over 100 yards, and Snyder, who was also the homecoming king, so congratulations to him last night, and Jeffrey, as they call him, Bubba, rushing, appropriate name, he finished with 140. They had 6 people average more than 5 yards a carry on more than three carries each. So they win 54-0, and important one for them, Cody and Baylor, because they've got, you know, it's a bigger one because there's more people involved and stuff. Riverton Lander on the horizon for the 10th, but a not as well followed, but definitely just as much bitterness and arch rivals. Wind River need to get the ship righted because they travel to Shoshone this coming Thursday night.
Yeah, that Shoshone Wind River game will be a big one. Shoshone consistently has done well in that rivalry, but Wind River's knocked them off a few times too, so it'll be the battle of Missouri Valley, so to speak.
I think, you know, it's most important to win that first conference game. Start off on the right foot. That's what Riverton and Lander will be trying to do today. And so for Wind River to get that win, I think, you know, that's going to turn their season around. Like you said, a get-right game, and set them up for hopefully a run towards the playoffs.
Well, and it's an interesting thing, too, is that Wind River, as we all know, they run the double wing tee. They run the option. They threw the ball more than they have all season. So did Wyoming Indian. Coming into that game, combined, the teams only averaged just under 5 completions a game. They were a little more willing to throw last night, both of them, but it was Wind River's rushing attack. But you always look at that and go, okay, Wind River's not built for a comeback. And they're not. The coaching staff will will admit it. They're a wing T, which is not built for a comeback. But speaking of, Shoshone has kind of had the edge as of late. But last year, Shoshone gets up by 3 scores. And then, for whatever reason, decided to kick an onside kick with 1 minute left. Wind River had 8 yards with a minute left in the half of offense. Threw a Hail Mary, got it, got the touchdown, and that wound up being part of a 28-0 run by Wind River. Game went late. Shoshone came back and tied it. Wind River winning it, when on paper, and that's why they say in a rivalry game, just throw it out. On paper, Shoshone was the better team. So that's kind of what we're looking at this year. This weekend will tell whether it'll be a matchup of 2 1-3 teams or a 2-2 and a 1-3 team. But when people ask me, is that a big rivalry from out of state, folks from back home who are way into high school football, I go, well, here's the thing. If the home team wins, something's getting set on fire.
I don't know about that, but
They like the logo, the S or the W.
Okay, all right. I'm glad you clarified that. But no, these kids all know each other. They compete against each other. They're in fair together. They're friends, but they throw everything out on rivalry night. Wind River and Shoshone, one of the best rivalries in the state for small school football.
Absolutely, and we're going to dive right in now to that's pretty much the only things we've had lately. Of course, volleyball now getting out of the tournament, so it's more one-on-one type matchups. And we're going to talk, I guess we'll first talk about the first game tonight on KFCW with at 6 o'clock with Ernie Over and Andrew Garcia on the call on 93.1 KFCW. And that is Lander Valley and Torrington. Lander Valley coming out, I mean, we all knew they could be good, but they have just looked great. Now a tough ask for the Lander Valley Tigers, as you know, they went about as far west as you can go last week with a trip to Evanston, and now they go about as far east as you can go with a trip to Torrington. What do you guys think about that matchup on KFCW tonight?
Well, anytime
opening the season on the
go ahead.
Opening the season on the road is always tough, you know, especially a long road trip like you're just talking about. But Lander's been impressive this year, and honestly, Torrington's one of those teams. They don't play a lot of in-state non-conference games. You know, they play a lot of the Nebraska teams and stuff like that, and it's hard for us to know really how strong they're going to be. So I think not only is it going to be a good test for Lander just to see, you know, if this non-conference success that they've been having, if they can continue that into the conference matchups, but also, you know, it gives the rest of the 3A West or 3A East conference kind of an idea of where Torrington stands, you know, how powerful they can be this year.
Tough road trip for Lander. They go down to Torrington. It's in hostile territory. It's about 300 miles for Torrington to make that drive. And the good thing for Torrington is they've got, for Lander, is they've got a great running game. And, you know, they're going to depend on that all night. Braden Baker's going to carry the ball. For Torrington, they've got to stop that running game. But Steinmetz is a good coach. He tutored under Mark Lenhart when Lenhart was at Torrington. And I would expect Torrington to have a good game plan. This could be a one-score game.
That should be a great game, and we'll look no further next up at 7 o'clock on 101.7 KDNO, this station right here. Kevin Simpson and Ryan Williams with the call. We will get Thermopolis hosting Kimmerer, second home, I think it is. Or that was last week. That was last week. So, hold on, let me pull it up. It's been a whirlwind of a past couple of days, so...
Thermopolis with the big win over Kimmer last week, and this Bobcats team, again, very well coached. Got a fiery head coach. They do well. And, you know, so the Bobcats probably favored tonight in this game.
They've got Lovell.
That'll be a tough one. It's always... that's kind of a Big Horn Basin rivalry that's been brewing for a number of years, and now they get a chance to play each other in conference. So Lovell Bulldogs always put a good product on the field.
It should be a highly entertaining matchup. Of course, Thermopolis looking to go 4-0. I can't remember the last time we had the three of our larger schools on the radio on a Friday night, and all three of our quote-unquote home teams are ranked.
Yeah, it's been a while, but the rankings I don't care about them.
They're fun to talk about on the radio.
Tonight, the Bobcats have their work cut out for them with Lovell. Any coach would tell you that the rankings don't matter, Kevin, but you're right. I mean, the wheat is starting to separate from the chaff, so to speak. That's an old cliche.
Cody Beers. It's not cliche. It's a biblical scripture.
Well, it's a sports cliche. Let's just put it that way. But Thermopolis with a good shot tonight. Of course, Lander with a good shot, and Riverton. So the big three, the three ranked teams, they're getting noticed statewide, and that's always good to see.
Well, a chance for, of course, Lander Valley as well as Thermopolis to stay undefeated. Of course, Riverton, their only lone loss being the number 2 Cody in a game that I'm sure kind of both teams defensively probably like back, but especially Riverton. And, of course, Riverton, yet again, for umpteen times on the road, it seems like in a row, is you guys are headed to Douglas. Douglas always a tough matchup, especially at their place.
Douglas has had Riverton's number for a number of years, clear back to when they first started playing conference games against each other. Of course, Jay Rhodes, the longtime coach there, he's now gone, but his heir apparent is in charge, runs the same type of tough football. And this, I'm not discounting what Lander's done so far, but when you open the conference season with a team like Douglas, it could be for a conference championship in week 1. Now,
just keep
Mark
giving them
Linhart,
billboard material.
Mark Linhart will say no way, and Lander will lick their chops a little bit with that statement. But Riverton beats Douglas last year; they're conference champions. Who knows? But it'll be a battle tonight. I mean, Baylor and I've called a couple of these games. They're always fun. And Linhart, in his 3rd year in Riverton, has had 2 good matchups with Douglas. And it could lead to a 3rd straight great matchup tonight in Bearcat Stadium.
Well, you think about Linhart also. I mean, he got his coaching experience, I guess, first experience at Torrington. So he played Douglas a lot, and this coach for Douglas, he's the guy who knows Linhart the best. So it's a really fun matchup to call on the radio because these two coaches know each other so well that they know what the other guy's going to do. It's just it turns into a really fun matchup, and it's really exciting how meaningful this game is. Obviously, every game is meaningful once you get to the conference schedule, but I mean, I truly this game's going to matter when it comes down to home field advantage at the end of the season. And it's also it gives Riverton, I guess, a chance to they've kind of had 2 easy wins the last 2 weeks. Gives them a chance to prove they're the real deal. With going up against a really tough Douglas team. And on Douglas specifically, I don't know if I've ever seen a Riverton team beat Douglas. And that's going back 10 years when I was in high school. So Douglas has certainly had our number for a long time, and it's time to fix that.
Well, thank you to Baylor for making myself feel old there, saying 10 years ago when I was in high school.
You are old.
Yeah, I can't remember high school. We did have the first fall sports standings come out. Now, granted, a lot of teams don't have a conference game yet, so it's based on overall as far as that goes. But when you look at like 3A East for football, you got Lander Valley sitting on top, Riverton right there with them. Douglas, the only other team in the 3A East with a winning record currently. Torrington sits at 2-2, Buffalo at 1-2, and Rollins, hate to say as usual, at 0-4. Class 1A 9-man, just to go through the local schools. Shoshone's in 4th, Wind River in 5th, Wyoming Indian in 6th. 1A 6-man, DuBois sitting in 5th. As far as the South Conference, has had an incredible start in 1A 6-man. Between Farson, Eden, Little Snake River, Casper Christian, Encampment, and DuBois, you got 2 losses total between all 4 of them, or all 5 of them. In volleyball, where they played a little bit more into the conference, DuBois sits in 2nd in the 1A Northwest portion of the conference. Fort Washake's in 4th in 1A Southwest. In 2A Northwest, Shoshone's in third. In 2A Southwest, Wyoming Indians in second. Wind River in third. And then in Class 3A West, and again, just a weird start from preseason ranked, Lander Valley sits in eighth. And in Class 4A Southwest, only a four-team little pod there, Riverton sits in fourth. So those are the two that they put out standings for, volleyball and football. Ought to be, again, I know it's for us to talk about, just like the college ones are. But you want to talk about, if you are a fan of football in Fremont County, Cody and Baylor, this weekend, starting last night with a Fremont on Fremont matchup, but especially tonight, 3 ranked teams going, including one in Hot Springs and Thermopolis, then the college slate that we've got, it's an incredible next 2 days of football. And then you have really a get-right game on Sunday. We'll talk a little bit about that because I don't think anybody thought this would be a get-right game with the Ravens.
Yeah, well, there's nothing better than Friday Night Lights in Wyoming, and the whole football thing it's hyped in schools. A lot of the kids that play other sports are like, well, what about us? But football really sets the tone in your high school for the rest of your school year, and things have been a significant improvement over the past with Mark Lenhart leading this Riverton team. He's got the second leading quarterback in the state. He's got the leading rusher in the state, one of the best kickers in the state, an improving defense, and an improving offensive line. I love the matchup between Riverton and Douglas because Douglas has a big physical quarterback. They have receivers. They put out weekly stats every week that for us to read and for the rest of the state to look at. Douglas does something kind of funny, so you have to get a roster and look at theirs. They only put numbers down for their stat line. So, that's a statement the coach is making, that no one individual is better than the team. So it takes a little more homework to get ready for that game. It's harder to get those coaches to talk to media this week. We'll have a good conversation with Mark tonight on the pregame about this rivalry, but there's nothing better than Friday Night Lights. And, of course, in small school football, those Thursday night games are special, too, because they get to take the spotlight like Wind River Shoshone will this next Thursday.
Absolutely. And
I think.
Oh, go ahead, Baylor.
Yeah, sorry. I think just having 3 games, in the county. Obviously, 2 of them on the road, but I mean, there's a lot of excited people. We talked about it earlier before the season started. It kind of goes in cycles, and it seems like it's almost Fremont County's turn to have some good football teams. And folks around the county have got to be excited for their teams. Is that Thermopolis game's in Thermopolis, correct?
Yes.
I mean, that's going to be a widely attended game, I would imagine, if it's in Thermopolis.
It is.
Yeah, it is. So, I mean, Lovell they've been a powerhouse of 2A for a long time, and the Thermopolis faithful are gonna show up for that game just to root on the Lovell Bulldogs' demise. But I just did some quick digging on Riverton Douglas, and since they started playing every year in 2006, since then Riverton's only 2-18 against Douglas, and the last win came in 2012. So it's been a long time coming, and hopefully Riverton can get right today, and it should be a really fun game. There'll be a lot of fun football going on, and then it's not even going to end, like you said, tomorrow and also Sunday. It's going to be fun. And then Monday night, Broncos also a get-right game.
And this is one of those weeks where both at the high school level, getting into conference schedule, at the college level, obviously going into week 4, week 5, depending on who you are, the pro game, where people start to ask themselves, where you start to really see some panic from a team that maybe was supposed to be better. People start to ask, okay, well, what's going wrong? And again, I don't think anybody on their bingo card had, for example, Sunday night, the Kansas City Chiefs and Baltimore Ravens being a matchup of 2 teams with a losing record.
Don't you love it?
Yes, I absolutely do, actually. But at the pro game, I like to see different teams. And, of course, if you're a sports fan, great time of year. You're getting into conference football here, like we are with Friday nights. you guys, Cody, you, Eric, and like Ernie, who go to all the Wyoming home games, two of y'all going to the away games. Y'all couldn't have asked for a better bye week as far as being able to watch some great games on Saturday, and that'll be fun for you guys. Because it's just absolutely loaded, and then you also throw in something that I know you and I enjoy. I think Baylor does too. You're getting on the edge of postseason baseball as well. I mean, it's just a great time. As I think it was Sean McDonough said, I hate to reference this game, when Georgia Tech blocked that FSU field goal several years ago and returned it with no time for the game winner. What a time to be alive is what he yelled out. And it's just a great weekend. Hopefully you're getting to throw some stuff on the smoker tomorrow. And I know I am, and that'll be just awesome. Of course, we've got fantasy football in full swing. Baylor, we're going to go to our little fantasy football moment. I'm now 2-1 because pretty much my running backs and wide receivers are the most inconsistent group of people. But Josh Allen usually pans out for me. The weird part is, in the week that he didn't put all that much stats up, I won. Last week he put up a ton, and I got killed.
Yeah, it's there's a lot of luck involved in fantasy football, and it can be one of the most frustrating things that you do. But what I wanted to talk about today is season-ending injuries, and maybe not season-ending specifically, but just long-term injuries. We had Mike Evans, he's out for 4 to 6 weeks with a hamstring. We had James Conner, he's done for the season. We had what the heck's his name? Trey, whatever the running back is for the Giants. Tracy, thank you. I thought of that myself. Thank you to myself. But Tracy, he went down, and I guess what I want to talk about was if you have one of those players who went down, this is the time when you're going to be scouring your waiver wire. You're going to be looking for their backup. You're going to be looking for another player to take their spot. And so, either obviously this year it's a little bit late. Waivers typically go through on Wednesday. So if you didn't pick up a guy, sorry about that. But for next year, for the coming weeks, make sure you're in the position where if a player goes down, you have the depth, either their backup or you have the ability to acquire their backup or somebody to cover for them. I mean, that's you don't win your league at the draft. You gotta scour the waiver wire and be ready to make moves to put yourself back in a winning position after season-ending injuries or long-term injuries that are going to derail your team for a long time.
It may be one of the ones that doesn't really affect fantasy per se, because most leagues, at least, you just pick a team defense. But San Francisco 49ers losing Nick Bosa again. He is out for the season as well. And there's a couple MRI saw saying this past week, it's kind of weird. We were used to, the past several years, you've had season-ending injuries every week. It looked like this year, first couple weeks of the NFL season, you didn't have a ton of them. And then this past week just went nuts with ACLs, even Achilles tears. It was just not a good week, and that went across pretty much all pro sports as we started getting some NBA reports of guys going out just in practice with Achilles tears.
Don't you love seeing replays of Achilles tears now? They used to be broken legs.
I don't love it.
Achilles tears. I just think the networks are a little out of control, and they pan in on those things and show them over and over again.
So y'all heard it here first, and Baylor, you found out something about your dad today. Cody enjoys watching guys have potentially career-ending injuries.
No.
Good to know.
I said that was very facetious, sir.
I'm just kidding. So again, this has gone down. Friday night is going to be a great night of football here on Wyo Today's networks. Of course, tomorrow with the college one, people are putting up posts and putting up schedules where this might be the best college football Saturday, at least on paper, in 10 years. It is absolutely loaded, and with that transition, we'll go towards our picks. So,
Alabama will beat Georgia. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to bring that up.
So our guest pickers, Kevin Simpson went 3-2 last week, and Ryan Williams decided to take Baylor's normal spot and go 1-4. Baylor goes 3-2. So Baylor positive last week. Congratulations to him. Cody, first losing week of the season for him at 2-3. And there's another guy who picked who went 4-1, not quite as the 5-0 of the previous
Pat
week.
yourself on the back, Kevin.
So overall, we've got Baylor at 10-10, Cody at 11-9, and myself at 14-6. And Cody, have you got the games pulled up? I do. If you don't,
I do.
Okay, go ahead and
All
start
right.
us off.
First one, Baylor, TCU, and Arizona State.
You know, it's a classic Big 12 matchup. I think I got to go TCU.
Kevin,
Where's that game being played? Do we know?
at Arizona State.
It's at Arizona State. So Arizona State, not quite the team they have been or were expected to be. That loss to Mississippi State, we'll see how good that turns out to be. Of course, Mississippi State played them well last year, and it was pretty much the only game Mississippi State played well. So because it's at home, I'm going with Arizona State.
I'm going with Arizona State. Oregon and Penn State versus Penn State. At Penn State, Kevin.
It's a whiteout. They do that once a year, and it is a scene to behold. 100,000 plus, all in white, night game. It gets loud, but Penn State, I don't know what you think, Baylor, but I'll say this. Penn State may be the highest ranked team that really hasn't faced any kind of a challenge yet. They have not played anybody really of any note. Of course, Ohio State at one, open with Texas. Georgia had Tennessee. Alabama had FSU. FSU had Alabama, obviously. Penn State's played nobody. And that's why I'm going to go with Dan Lanning and the Ducks to win by 10 plus.
Okay, if they don't win by 10 plus,
No,
it's a
it's
loss.
a straight up pick, but I'm going with the Ducks. I think too much speed, and this is typically the type of game that Penn State gets all hyped up for, and then they blow it.
Baylor?
Yeah, I think a game like this for Oregon, you know, they're pretty highly ranked. You know,
Number
if they want
6.
a run at the college football playoff, you got to pull out a win here. So I got the Oregon Ducks as well.
Well, because it's a whiteout and Penn State players like CU will probably come on the field wearing their dark jerseys after it was a whiteout last weekend in Boulder and CU took the field in black jerseys, I'm going to go with Penn State. USC and Illinois, second straight week we've went with an Illinois game, but we've got that non-traditional Big Ten game, Baylor.
Well, I think, non-traditional USC, what's in their third year, I think, in the Big Ten or some weird crap. But I think, you know, we just got to go Illinois. I mean, they're hot right now.
Okay,
Kevin.
so Baylor just called a team that lost, 70 to 10 to Indiana hot. So
Wait, hold on. I was thinking Indiana. That was my bad. I still think Illinois pulls this one out, though.
okay.
They're definitely not hot, but a get right game for them, I should say. My bad.
Where's that game at? It's in
Illinois.
Champaign. It's in Champaign, Illinois. Illinois that was a bad game. Indiana's a good team. Illinois was overrated at 9. I think we all agree on that. I stayed up and watched the game that everybody in the traditional Big Ten complained about last week, Michigan State and USC, because it ended at 2:30 Eastern time. Of course, Sparty is on Eastern time zone. So Brett Bielema is a very good coach, but Illinois is hard to get players, and I think this is an absolute must for Lincoln Riley this year. I'm going to go with SC on the road.
I'm going to go with SC on the road. All right, we're going to move into Sunday's games. Some really interesting matchups. First one, Kevin, Baltimore at Kansas City.
Who would have thought it's a get-right game for both of them?
Maybe it'll be a tie.
Yeah, because the NFL, if I'm not mistaken, is there any way to tie in this state in football, in Wyoming high school football?
No.
So the only level that I know of nowadays that can have a tie is the NFL. The highest level of football can have a tie. It's at KC. Derrick Henry all of a sudden has ball security issues out the wazoo. So As much as it pains me, I'm going to go with the Chiefs.
Baylor.
It tempts me to go the Chiefs. I think the Chiefs are on their way down because I am a Broncos fan, and I've thought that for 10 years now. And been proven wrong a lot. But I think the Ravens, Derrick Henry's been having some struggles, obviously, like you said. I think the Baltimore offense has been having some struggles, especially in that last game. But I think they go into KC and they upset KC because I don't think KC's offense can score on Baltimore.
And I'll go with Baltimore also because Kansas City is on the way down, and I hope people in Kansas hear me.
Well, this is definitely the Kansas City's in Missouri.
Yeah, I know, but we have one particular fan in mind.
Oh, stop.
All right, so the final one here, Indianapolis and Los Angeles. This is a good one because Indianapolis is surprising some people.
And
Kevin,
this is the Chargers, right?
this
Or is it the Rams?
Los Angeles Chargers. Nope, I'm sorry. It's the Los Angeles Rams.
It's the Rams. The Rams have shown me a lot this year. Of course, they lost on a shout out to my fellow UGA alum Jordan Davis with the big block field goal for Philly against the Rams. 2 blocked field goals in the final 2 field goals they tried to attempt to win the game. Of course, that one returned all the way for a touchdown. 330-pound man reached 18.7 miles per hour. I think the strong start in week 1 for Indy is dead. I think the LA Rams win this one relatively easily.
Baylor.
First long road trip for Indy. I think Indy is pretty good this year. But Daniel Jones has got a Daniel Jones at some point. I think the Rams pull this one out.
Okay, I'm going to go with Indianapolis on the road. They're going to win it. They are good. They've got Daniel Jones, who's come into his own. They've got the best kicker in the NFL, besides that guy that kicks 80-yard field goals in Dallas. But this guy's a rookie, and he's good. He's very good. And they've got Jonathan Taylor, Michael Pittman. I mean, this is a Colts team that's been building towards success.
Speaking of Daniel Jones, how bad do you have to feel if you're the New York Giants brass and coaches when pretty much everybody who has left there has had a resurgence or even gotten better? I mean, Saquon Barkley was a stud to begin with, but better when he left. Daniel Jones, awful in New York, but I'm kind of with Baylor on that. At some point in time, you expect Daniel Jones is going to Daniel Jones. Kind of like you were just waiting on Jared Goff at some point in time to Jared Goff once he got to Detroit and they got the new coach. And they did that in week 1 against Green Bay. They've still got it in them. So,
real quick, surprise pick of the week, Alabama and Georgia. Baylor.
Oh, jeez. I wasn't prepared for this one. I think, as much as it pains me to say, I think I got to go Georgia. I think Alabama's struggling, and they just aren't playing very well.
Kevin.
So I'm going to go Georgia in that game.
Kirby Smart is 1 and I do believe 4. We're 1-7 in our last 8 against Alabama. The interesting stat there, not a single one of those was in Athens. Been talking to some buddies back home, so to speak, where I went to school, and Athens has been electric. Expect that home field to be a rockin'. And I don't like picking games when my heart's involved, especially when you throw in the fact that the starting quarterback of Georgia went to the high school my kids went to in Georgia. We know the family well. All right. No, stop. I let you do it with Wyoming. I'm doing it here. I'm going to go that Kirby kind of gets the Bama monkey off his back, and that's kind of because, of course, you know, to win our first national title since 1980, he beat Alabama and Nick Saban. So it's not he won one of the biggest ones. So of course he lost one to him too. But I'm going to go with Georgia, and the only thing that scares me is Alabama is getting healthy, but so is Georgia. Georgia gets the right side of their line back. Alabama gets 2 of their skill player back from injury. So I'm going to go with Georgia in an absolute nail biter. I think it'll be less than 1 score game.
Roll Tide, baby. Roll Tide.
Of course you would.
All right, so,
of course you would. So
Hey, big Friday night of football. Please tune in. Wind River Radio Network. We've got two of the best 3A teams in the state going. Good matchups. Lander at Torrington, Riverton at Douglas. We'll be live at about 6:30 on both channels. It's high school football.
I hope Lander's live before 6:30 as they kick off at 6.
Oh, I thought they went at 7.
No, 7's Thermopolis. So you can catch that Lander
gotcha.
Valley versus Torrington game, 6 o'clock, Hampton and Sweets pregame show, probably about 5:30 with Eric and Andrew on 931 KFCW. At 7, Kevin, I almost get their last names, I always mess up. Kevin Simpson and Ryan Williams with Thermopolis hosting the Level Bulldogs on 101.7 KDNO right here on this station. And then at 7, it, of course, will be Cody and Baylor Beers with you, and they will be bringing you the big matchup of Riverton versus Douglas, which will be on 93.9 KTAK. And if I'm not mistaken, that's number 5 Lander Valley, number 3 Riverton, and number 5 Thermopolis Bobcats in the 2A ranks.
Number 4 Douglas.
So and number 4 Douglas, and I think Lovell may be ranked too. I just didn't look it up. So you've got ranked on ranked matchups all weekend long, of course, and of course you can finish out your weekend on 99.1 or on Monday, 99.1 KWYW pregame. It's a weird Monday Night Football week because there's 2 and they're starting like 45 minutes to an hour apart. Denver, the later one, and that'll be on 991 KWYW.
6:15 kickoff.
6:15 kickoff. So pregame probably about 5-ish on KWYW. So for Baylor and Cody Beers, I'm Kevin Shields. We'll see you next Friday on Wire Today Sports Live.
Roll Tide.
I would bark, but I'm not gonna.